The following presentation is controversial and may be offensive to some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello, Forum. Great to have you company again. A lot of things are happening in the world today. In fact, there is a major agenda to change people, to change people's ways they think, and to manipulate people's opinion about what's happening in the world today. This is my video on the bullshit about climate change. You know, there's been a lot of talk just recently about climate change, especially in the news, where Australia have drawn back. They have rescinded the carbon tax and the carbon trading. But we're now seeing the push for blaming human beings for climate change has been accelerating. We're seeing aid agencies now say that, oh, these typhoons that are happening in the Philippines and the bushfires that are happening in Australia, they're all to be blamed on man-made climate change. But the one thing they don't talk about is that typhoons like these, bushfires like these, they've been happening across the planet for thousands of years. They're always big. Some of them bigger than others. Some of them are more devastating than others, but they have been happening long before modern man has actually been moving into these places. So what we're seeing is, by stealth, they're now blaming the people of this planet for the very, very system that has been forced on us. Now, we wouldn't have all this climate change problem. We wouldn't have all these man-made emissions being put into our atmosphere if we had the technology, say, for example, of Nikola Tesla, of Stanley Myers, of some of the more wonderful inventors that have been taken out of the picture, and their technology have been taken out. So we can see now that there's even more of a push in the United States for climate change to be blamed on people, for them to make new laws, new legislations, and of course this evolves into new taxes, higher prices for food for everybody, higher prices for gas. I have with me in the studio here today a very, very good researcher who's been on this. He's got his finger on the pulse of what's happening across the world and in our cosmos. I'd like everybody to welcome Mr. Earthplay. Sir, it's good to have your company here today, and can you tell us just a little bit about what's happening in the United States at the moment with them trying to prepare new laws to change the people, to change the ideas of people, and what are your thoughts specifically about human-created climate change?
Thank you. I'm not feeling great right now. I've been under the weather, but I still follow my research. I don't like the direction that I see our country moving in right now, especially since the presidential executive orders preparing the United States for the impact of climate change. Just like you said, our food prices, our utility prices, well, just about every commodity across the board is being targeted here. Of course, we all know that presidential executive orders are not being on the people, but in an indirect way they actually are. The Department of State, Department of Treasury, Defense, Justice, Interior, Agriculture, the Commerce Department, the Labor Department, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Urban Development Department, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the Department of Veteran Affairs, the Department of Homeland Security, and the list just goes on and on. They're actually, I believe, changing American totalitarian society, and that's very evident by the Obama Health Care or the Health Powers Legislation Act that they crammed down everybody's throat. If you didn't want to open your throat and willingly swallow this crap, they'll ram it right up your ass. It's a very frustrating topic, but that's going to be my comment. I think that this is all leading to a totalitarian society, that it is already in place. And the American people, you know, God help me, are the stupidest people on the planet. I have to tell you. All they're concerned about is Sunday football, basketball, baseball, Dancing with the Stars, what's on television, and who can get stuck than the next guy. I don't see Americans addressing their, or even acknowledging that we have a problem. So I'm very frustrated here.
You know, one of the things I hear a lot about is a continuous barrage in the media of blaming human beings for causing carbon footprints, for causing carbon pollution, for causing all these things. But we happen to be a carbon-based life form. Now, when you start having a tax on carbon, on a carbon-based life form, it seems to me slightly, very slightly hypocritical. Now, a lot of this stuff, too, is the system that was forced on us. The system of nuclear power was forced on us. We have no choice in it. The system of polluting the atmosphere with these big companies, the chemical companies, Monsanto, that are poisoning our environment, as was just pointed out. Now, this is not the people who are poisoning the planet. These are the major corporations in pocket with the governments, which I consider are nothing more than just tentacles of the one same octopus that is engaging in depopulation program here on Earth. And one thing I'd like to ask Mr. Earthplay is a lot of talk has been said about humans creating climate change on the planet, but the one thing I never see them talk about is extrasolar activity, things that are happening in our cosmos that are affecting Earth as well. Could you elucidate a bit further about this? Because there's a lot of evidence, in fact, that the sun affects our climate, that the things that happen to the sun affect our climate. Why is this not even being brought up in this climate change debate, if you could call it a debate at all?
It's an agenda. As we all know, many of us have been watching the solar indexes and conditions in the data put forward for well over a decade now. I came into it during the peak of solar cycle 23, a very astounding time. But I see that we're now in a solar minimum, and we're dealing with the same phenomena that were occurring during solar maximums. This is because there are other energies from, I believe, from deep background radiation and deep space that are charging up our magnetic field. And it's not a dark star, it's not a dwarf, it's not a rogue body. These things have been happening to the Earth for billions of years. Climatic change. Years ago, if you had asked me this, exclusively blaming the damage done to the planet Earth on man, I would have stood up and faced you down. How dare you? You know, you really need to do some more research. But over the last decade, I think that statement is more true than ever. Not as individual people or citizens driving our cars, living our daily life, but the destructive force of man on our planet, popping methane caverns, oil reserves in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, volcanic, asphaltic volcanic material as well has been compromised, Fukushima, just to name a few, accidental releases of chemicals in India, massive loss of life in the millions every single year due to either man-made or natural events. But I think that the hand of man is starting to be just a little bit more dangerous than the hand of nature. Nature has never struck out and killed an entire ocean. It very possibly could, but man did that. The diseases, the plagues, as you said, the poisoning of our food supply by our very own government and people. That shows you that they are not our people. The pollution of every water source on the planet with iridium 243, I believe, uranium 243, 1,800, maybe up to 1,000 above ground, well, including above ground 1,800 and another 200 underground nuclear detonations. The development of super weapons that will kill every whale, dolphin, mammal, or intelligent mammal in the ocean for a range of 200 miles and cripple them up to 500 miles. Satellite use. I was starting to talk about our water supply, our food supply, our air supply, our soil erosion and chemical content. These are all man-made. We cannot, deny that factor anymore. But is it recklessness on behalf of the human race? I don't think so, because many of these things seem to be purposely by design. They don't care. When they detonated the first nuclear bomb, there was clearly a majority of the scientists that thought that it would start a chain reaction in the atmosphere. But they did it anyway. They did it anyway. And we do so many of these actions. I don't know where it's all going to lead. Inevitably, I think that man is going to wipe himself out. We cannot sustain the level of toxicity, chemical releases, biological and chemical agents, assault upon our civilization or our environment for much longer. Fukushima may, I believe, already be the game changer.
Well, sir, in your humble opinion, is the evidence there to suggest that human beings are actually changing the climate with our everyday actions that we do, of driving our car, our SUVs, of consuming as we do? Is the evidence there to say that we are the ones that are changing our climate? Let's put aside the fact that since 1945 up to 1961, that they've let off over 20 nuclear devices in our atmosphere alone and in our stratosphere. So this poisoning of the planet has been going on for over 30, 40, 50 years. And yet suddenly they want to blame all human beings. Is the evidence there to suggest that human beings are alone contributing to this change in climate that we're seeing? What's your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, I wouldn't lay this at the feet of the citizen or the individual. Like I said, driving back and forth to work, maintaining a household, and even building a society. I think that you nailed it right on the head when you said that this was corporate governmental intrusions into our environment and into our lives. They don't care. They simply don't care. But the simple answer is yes, man is responsible, because we know the names of the corporations, the entities, the governments that are involved in these massive worldwide disasters. From that perspective, yes, you can lay it squarely on the shoulders of men and women. And I know that you say that it's not you, it's not me, it's not our neighbor that do these things or condone them. These things are done in our name and not necessarily with our consent, but we are aware of them now. We are aware, all of us are aware, and we have been aware for some time. And yet we have still failed to act in any way. Yes, every one of us is a contributing factor, but not to the detriment and the destruction of our planet at that level. When you get into corporate, government, and military applications, people, human beings, are solely responsible for what we find ourselves in this position now.
One of the biggest nails in the coffin of the global warming climate change proponents, one of the biggest nails in their coffin was, of course, the ClimateGate expose that exposed all the inside emails about changing the data, about creating this hockey stick of the Earth's temperatures rising up through the roof. However, there's been more nails in their coffin, considering that half the planet is freezing, considering that most of the